I want to talk about vows because they're extremely important whether we take them to the Father, like you see in Numbers 30 verse 2. If a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath to bind himself with a binding obligation, he shall not violate his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. And you can read Numbers 6 about the Nazarite vow, growing their hair, not having not having wine or anything to do with grapes, not touching anyone unclean, so avoiding different uncleanness. And they're very serious. We take a vow. In some sense, we take it when we are baptized. We confess with our mouth. And like he says, that they confess with their mouth, but they do other things. You read that in Titus 1, verse 16. They profess to know God, but by their deeds they deny him, being detestable and disobedient and worthless for any good deed. But then you read in, you go back to Numbers 30, and talks about a father hearing a vow. If he hears the vow and doesn't say anything, then it's valid. If he annuls it, then he, God forgives her or whatever. Same with a husband. And that part is important to us. You read that in Numbers 30, verse 11. It says that if he says, and did not forbid her, then all our vows shall stand. And this is something we want to focus on with respect to Christ, because we are Christ's bride. Now we go to Matthew 5, where he instructs us about vows. Because remember, he's our husband. What did he say about vows? In Numbers 5, he charges us to be salt and light, which I do not think that I came to abolish. He talks about wedding vows, oaths. Verse 33 of Matthew 5. Again, you have heard the ancients were told, you shall not make false vows, but shall fulfill your vows to the Lord. And it references Matthew 5 in a couple of places. But then we go, but I say to you, this is verse 34, but I say to you, make no oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by earth, for it is the footstool of his feet. Or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you make an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white and the other black. But let your statement be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything beyond this is evil. This is instruction from our husband, telling us not to make vows. That should be really important. But our yes be yes and our no be no. And that is something we should take very seriously. And then, like, he talks about adultery, about you shall not commit adultery, but I say to you, verse 28, but I say to you that anyone who looks at a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Yes, that applies to physical women, but also let's look at committing adultery on the other side of it, with other religions, other gods. That is what a lot of this is related to. When you look at all the marriage passages in the Bible, think about Christ as being the husband. When it talks about adultery, when it talks about fornication, when it talks about all these different things, think about Christ. And if we follow other people, other gods, other religions, that was part of the mistake of the Israelites. They sought how the Canaanites worshipped their gods, and they fell into that. And that's one of the things that we don't want to do, is when we commit ourselves to Christ, we don't even look at a woman with lust. Meaning other religions, other faiths, other belief systems. But we stick to the ketubah, the marriage contract of the Torah. And if you want to see some of the things that entails, I would suggest you read Exodus 20 through 23 about how to treat your neighbor, how to outmove the boundaries, how to make sure that the ox doesn't fall in a hole. Several different things. Also, Deuteronomy is a good one for different things. He teaches us, he tells us to not eat unclean foods. That's, in a sense, part of our wedding vow. Keeping the holy days, like he said to the disciples at Passover, do this in remembrance of me. That's part of the vow, in my opinion. And it's something we should take seriously. And all of the feast or wedding rehearsal, and I've gone through that in other videos, but take your vows seriously. Don't make a vow that you don't intend to keep. And be careful what vows you do make, because you're representing the Father and the Son. So think about that very carefully. Shalom, shalom.